This episode is sponsored by Gvoke HypoPen, glucagon injection. Gvoke HypoPen is an emergency glucagon for very low blood sugar in a convenient auto-injector that is available in 2 pre-measured doses for adults and children. I've partnered with Gvoke before, and I've been working with Xeris Pharmaceuticals since 2018. I even interviewed their CEO back in March 2020. If you want to hear that interview with Xeris President and CEO Paul Edick from March 2020, check out episode 143 of Diabetics Doing Things. I'm also really careful not to promote products that I don't personally use, and I have used Gvoke HypoPen for very low blood sugars before. I've told this story on this podcast before, and I'm convinced that if you are on insulin, you should have emergency glucagon around, just in case of a very low blood sugar. And I use Gvoke HypoPen. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with, and bear with me here, pheochromocytoma or insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for more information. This announcement is especially important now because you may have heard that there are glucagon products being discontinued, such as Eli Lilly's Glucagon Emergency Kit. So make sure that your prescriptions for glucagon are up to date by asking your doctor about Gvoke HypoPen glucagon injection. For more details and important safety information, visit gvokeglucagon.com. I also want to address that I will not promote pharmaceutical products without the opportunity to promote patient assistance programs, because if my listeners can't access glucagon, how can they use it to treat their very low blood sugar? So if you visit the Savings and Support tab on gvokeglucagon.com, you can get a $25 coupon for patients on commercial insurance plans. And there is a contact form to fill out for people not on commercial plans. We've linked gvokeglucagon.com and the savings and support resources in the show notes, as well as the important safety information. So thank you to Xeris Pharmaceuticals for your support of telling the amazing stories of people with diabetes all over the world at Diabetics Doing Things. Let's get to the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Diabetics Doing Things. We're telling the amazing stories of people with diabetes from all over the world, and returning to the podcast, he's still the most recent person in the NBA to play in the NBA with type 1 diabetes, Mr. Gary Forbes. Welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be back.
Well, man, you've been busy since you were last on the pod. I went back and looked. It was about this time of year. It was in 2018. We were going into 2019, and I was psyched, bro, because like 10 years, it's been 15 years almost now since you were playing for the Nuggets, and I was in college in Colorado Springs playing basketball, and seeing you in the NBA was like, man, there's somebody out there doing what I want to do with diabetes. And that just gave me so much hope, man. So I'm always hyped to have you back. Then you're about to go play overseas in Saigon, I believe you're about to go over there. And now obviously like post pandemic, a couple years have gone by. What are you up to, man? How are things?
Well, now, currently I'm an author. This is my second act in my, in my journey, this life. It was a, I guess it was a grind, getting to this stage. I have this comic series, Soul Survivors, that is set to come out 3 weeks. And, it was a new challenge for me. And, it got me excited every day. It was something that placed that same passion that I have for basketball and finding my purpose. Yes.
And I'm psyched to talk about Soul Survivors. We're going to talk about that a ton today, because you even brought it up to me last time, or like over the years, we've been talking and keeping in touch about, your journey and kind of transitioning from athlete to author. And I'd love to know, even just like personally, like there's a lot of routines that go with like getting to that pro level. And like, you were always like sharing your workouts and like all work is easy work. Did you apply that same all work is easy work to being an author? Because you got to get up every day and, return to the page and keep writing and keep, fine tuning and getting everything ready. How did you apply that mentality to writing as well?
Yeah, I did, man. When I first, came up with the whole concept of Soul Survivors and started writing, I've always been a good writer. Even in college, I was great at writing essays and all these reports and things like that. So the skill was there, but, writing a comic series for, the world to see was a whole different aspect of it. I started 4 years ago with this in 2018, and, I thought it was going to be like all right, I'll write the book, you know, 10 chapters and, it's a book next month or something like that. But, over time, just things getting better and sharpening and editing and things like that and new concepts coming to mind, I was able to grow to what it is now and seeing where it started 4 years ago to now. It's like I put my 10,000 hours in. You have to put 10,000 hours you know to become a professional at something. And for year four to I kind of calculated it how many hours I really spent in a day, and it added up to around 10,000 hours, and
Wow.
I've done it, and it feels amazing.
So you're seeing it now, like 4 years of work, and now 3 weeks away at time of recording. It's December 8th. Right now, we're going to publish this next week. So, you'll by the time the public is hearing this, like 2 weeks away from the release. How does it feel?
It's it's amazing, man. Just where I've been around so much, and I've talked to people year after year from it being just an idea in my head to it being on paper, illustrated, and I have content and videos out and things like that. Just seeing that growth from my mind, from my dream or my aspirations and finding a purpose to paper and all over the world. It's a good feel of accomplishment and just knowing that the same routine that I did with persevering and fighting to become a basketball player is the same skill set and the same routine I did with this.
Man, I've been also reading. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. I've been reading a lot more the last couple of weeks, getting back in my routines, and it's consistency. Everything is everything. Like, how do you approach one thing? Is how you approach everything. And so yeah, whether it's sports or a creative outlet or advocacy efforts or just personal goals, like showing up and keeping the work going is the only way to make it happen. Talk to me a little bit more about that though, like that transition of like, did you because you're not are you officially retired? Are we calling it that? Or are we just saying, you might show up to open run and like shut it down, but like are we officially, you're not looking to join teams anymore?
Nah, definitely not looking to join teams, but I hope every Saturday, man. I hope every Saturday. So, it's a new life for me, but I'm enjoying it. It's something that I know I was put, here to do,
Yeah.
and it actually really replaced that same love and joy and passion that I had for basketball, which
Right. So like you're now like you got to wake up and there's nobody cheering for you in the morning, just like it was when you're up running on the track or running bleachers in the morning for preparing to play basketball. So what was that like for you? Like, now is it just the same kind of approach, just in a different way? How have you, just I don't know. You said that you've been a writer for a while and that you've always kind of been drawn to it. How does it make like the how is it different? How is Gary Forbes today different than Gary Forbes the athlete?
like 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I was thinking, all right, my career coming towards an end, not getting obviously the same deals anymore, and getting older, new group of talent is coming in, and I understand the game of basketball, the business side of it, and I was just thinking like, all right, what do I do next? And a lot of athletes do have that issue, and what's the next act? And I do love basketball, but something didn't like drive me to, become a coach or trainer or something like that. And I knew I wanted to leave a legacy behind. I knew I wanted to make an impact and a joy on, inspiring and helping people. And I wanted to use, I guess, my disability, I guess, and, show all the, perseverance and the difficult times that I was able to overcome with the mindset that I have and just the joy and the passion of just living life, flowing through life.
I love that. And when you talk about like a legacy, I know watching your videos recently, I see a lot of comments from other people living with diabetes and their parents as well. Like, hey, my son or my daughter looks up to you for what you've done. Like, how connected are you, or like what is that like for you, like in this stage, to see not only like it's your previous accomplishments, but also your present and future, like as an author and storyteller, like seeing those come together and impact people.
Man, like, I remember I've always talked to friends and, they always told me, I have a story to tell. And I've never been, that outspoken of having diabetes, just as, at the time when I was becoming a professional basketball player, it wasn't something that's talked about. There wasn't no podcasts out. It was something that was like a secret. And it was like, if you had this, you were kind of like looked down on or looked less on.
Yeah, let's call it what it is. There's a lot of stigma around diabetes that affects people of all abilities and disabilities. It really does.
Right. And, it was something that, I struggle with to be open about, especially in college. I used to run to the bathroom and, either check my sugar or give myself injections, because I didn't want anyone asking questions or feeling, bad about what I have. I wanted to be a normal college student and, be accepted just like everyone else with no questions about my health. And, having diabetes, you kind of want to feel like you have it in control because it's your body. No one understands what you're going through. And, you get moody sometimes and things like that. So,
Wait, I need to talk to you about this because I do the same thing. I think like now as an older, like more mature guy, I can say like, oh, well, that's because you feel attacked, and
right,
when you're like, but I remember some of my worst diabetes moments were when I had to like come out of a practice, or I felt like my team was doing something like a conditioning day or something without me. And I like, we're sitting around later and I know they're all like, come on, Rob, like you didn't even go through half the session. I was like, I feel bad. I'm like, I wish I could tell you guys like what this is about, but I also don't want to make it about me. And it's tough, man. I think it's good to talk about this stuff. We don't hear, we are quick to celebrate, and myself included, like you doing it at the highest level, but it's also just so normalizing. It feels so good to hear you say like, yeah, I had some bad days on that path.
right, right. I did, man. And, I think those bad days, I guess it grew me and made me just more just knowledgeable about things that people go through life. Even though diabetes is something that's different from everybody, like me and you might have the same exact meal this at the same exact time, and our blood sugar levels would be different, in an hour or so, which is crazy. It's
And
sometimes
then we could do the same thing tomorrow and our numbers would be different. It's
I
just
like
like, yeah.
it's mind boggling. So, and it's something that I feel with what I'm doing. I can help so many people because uh, I've been through everything. I've been in a diabetic coma. I've had so many low blood sugar episodes. I've been in the hospital various times. But as you know, like having that energy or an emotion of feeling down about yourself can, you know, hurt hurt yourself as a diabetic. And
Yep.
I had that. And I think that I guess nonchalant or hopeful attitude about life and just focusing on the positive, I think has helped me a lot.
Just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Gvoke HypoPen glucagon injection. If you are a person on insulin or sulfonylureas, you should have glucagon. Gvoke HypoPen is a glucagon auto-injector for very low blood sugar that can be used in just 2 steps. Whenever I have a very low blood sugar, I'm glad that I have Gvoke. Talk to your endo or visit gvokeglucagon.com today. Well, I think being able to, and I think you talked about your mindset earlier, being able to take the negative with the positive and not let either one get you too high or too low.
But
I mean, well, it's hard and it's practice, right? So, and like that's the difference to me. People talk about you said 10,000 hours to be a professional. I totally agree. But also, like the difference between an amateur and a professional is like when you got no inspiration, when you have no energy, when you have no reason to show up, you show up anyway. And so, when I see, professional diabetics, like people are like, this low blood sugar hurt, but it's not going to stop me. This high blood sugar sucks, but I'm going to continue to go and do and fight for what I want. So I promise there's a transition in here somewhere to these superheroes. So the soul survivors, this story, all these people are different, and it's not just people with diabetes. There's other chronic illnesses represented, and they are this unit. So tell us, like, what are we gonna find here in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I always loved comics, books growing up, TV comic series, X-Men, Power Rangers, Conan, and all those things growing up. So, I wanted to do something that, I love it and enjoy, as well as use it as an inspiration. And, I know that there's millions of diabetics out there. And I knew that my reach was, I have a platform to speak. And I wanted to, make it a very impactful story. And having it's unfortunately this pandemic of, children with so many of these chronic illnesses, cerebral palsy, autism, leukemia, lymphoma, and all these things that I'm introducing in a book. And there's so many great people that have done great things with these, despite, having these health challenges. And I wanted to, show children, how to have that strong mindset despite, having these stigmas. And, it's something that I'm excited about every day, especially seeing parents that, are reaching out to me and thanking me for doing this and the way that I'm doing it. And I'm feeling so excited about this. And I know that it's going to be a very impactful story.
Well, you see with kids, like it's so interesting. Like, oh, I don't know where somewhere in like adolescence or adulthood, we start to like get afraid and like we start to look at ourselves differently. But like kids are so quick to accept each other. And so, when I look at like a diabetes camp, and I haven't been back since the pandemic, but I'm hopeful to go and visit a couple of camps here in the future. But at a diabetes camp, there's 500 kids there, and they all have diabetes. And so right off the bat, like everybody already knows what the other ones, at least on a surface level, going through. Um, and you see them kind of help each other and influence each other, and it's all on this like platform of support and acceptance. So I'm so excited for people who aren't aware of some of these other, chronic illnesses that, like you said, are affecting millions of young people in the world. I hope that the results that we're not going to be able to see one to one, but there will be someone somewhere living with one of these diseases, and I'll pick diabetes as an example just for this podcast. But somebody has encountered your story and your comic book, and they are able to meet somebody later with diabetes, and immediately they can say, hey, I can connect with you. I know a little bit about you through this story, and hey, I'm not going to treat you differently. I'm going to accept you as you are. And I think that like those little micro interactions can start big time, like make a huge difference. I used to talk about on the podcast a lot. The first 15 minutes of your diagnosis can set you up for success or failure for the next year, because it's just a long learning curve, and you got to know it's like not your fault and like you're not alone. But if you don't hear that right away, it might be a really tough road. So I'm psyched for, the roads that are gonna get smoothed out and the good things that are gonna happen from this book.
It was crazy that you said the first 15 minutes of being diagnosed. I remember it. I was in the trainer's office and he rolled down the blinds and, I was kind of like, all right, what is this guy about to tell me? Like, why, why can't I see anybody anymore? And, he said, you got type 1 diabetes and, they're going to send me to the nurse to, practice, being able to take injections and needles. And I was just like, okay. They told me I would have to take like a week off of practice just to get acclimated. And I'm thinking like, all right, this is, why does this feel serious? But I'm in college. I'm 19 years old. I'm thinking about trying to become a pro basketball player. And it, it just went in one ear and out the other. And I know other people don't have that same experience or maybe that same mindset. But I just thought about it like, all right, I have diabetes. I've seen my father, with it and live with it. All right, let's go. Like, what do I need to do? What, steps do I need to take to, not only be at the highest level playing basketball, but able to manage, living with diabetes. And it's been an experience every year. I've either gotten better or sometimes things go the other way, and it's a learning curve. And with just with life, like it's almost like living two lives. Like you got to grow up and learn the learning curve, being out in the real world as well as every day living with diabetes, and it's something different every day, which is an unbelievable kind of thing to live with.
And sometimes it feels personal too, like right when you're the most tired, or like you're the most like at the end of your rope, like an alarm will go off, or you'll feel a low blood sugar coming on, or you'll just be like, all right, come on, like this is just too is the timing is too perfect.
Right, and it's crazy, and I think the biggest thing about soul survivors that I feel is everyone knows someone with one of these health challenges. Is And that's the connection and removing the stigma from being able to see people with these things and being able to know about it and understand what they're going through. And there's no judgment, and everyone feels included in this life.
When you look back and you think about like those moments, those highs and those lows, like today you shared a note that you wrote yourself, and you talked about it on the last time that you were on the show, and it's on that Marriott scratch pad. So, for you, like we talked a lot about mindset. I think it's so clear, like the way that you're able to handle, highs and lows of life and highs and lows of diabetes without judgment. How do you, where does that come from? Is that like you mentioned your father, and I know he lives with diabetes and was an Olympian with diabetes before, we had the tech that we have today, a real, a pioneer. And like, where does that attitude come from? Where does that mindset come from?
I think it honestly comes from him. He always gave me these cliche sayings and mind over matter, and it truly resonates with me because they kind of make me feel good. I came up with this quote and saying, "Doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith," and it kind of pays no dividends to doubt yourself when you haven't even tried. And I've always had that optimistic view on everything that I do. I always think I could do it, even if we were playing the number one team in the country and our record was 1-16. Like I honestly believe that we can beat this team, or honestly believe that every year I'm going to get better as a diabetic, or it's just anything in life. Even writing this book, I've written it down 4 years ago that I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller for this comic series. And it's, why not? Russell Westbrook has that saying, like, why not? So, I feel the same way. Why not try to be, the best that you can be? Sometimes you fail, and failure is a part of, success. And, I've always felt that.
Well, and I think what it really comes down to is like, you don't average close to 30 points a game in college without that mentality. You know what I mean? That's a shooter's mentality. That's a bucket getter. So, the way I was talking to my wife about it the other day, because she was having a hard time with like a particular project, and she didn't grow up playing like sports, and so this is kind of like my pitch for an advocacy for sports. And like you learn lessons, you learn how to win, you learn how to lose, you learn how to put that effort out, and you also learn that the best opportunity, like the best outcome, is still possible. So when you're visualizing that, and your words have power. You used to do, you go to a camp and somebody come in and be like, imagine yourself shooting a basketball. It's like, well, did you make it or miss it in your mind? And it's like, in my mind, it was always going in. Like, we didn't understand why I would look at it. The point is to put it in. So yeah, I believe there's superpower in the words and the attitudes. And that is why I love people when people play sports, because you learn how to fail, you learn how to suck, you learn how to be a beginner and work your way through it and apply yourself and learn how to love something even when it's hard. And I think that's valuable lessons. And now I'm getting off my soapbox. So speaking of sports, Your life as a diabetes athlete is not completely over, uh, because you played in the basketball tournament, which, for those who are not real hoop heads, is a awesome tournament that started up about 5, 6 years ago, and has had $1 million prize. I think it's like a $2 million prize now, and a lot of like college teams get their alumni together, and now charities are getting involved. And Team Defeat Diabetes put their first team together this year, and you were a signature member. I think you were the only member who lived with type 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true. It was an honor for them to even call me. I've been retired, I guess, now for 3 years or so, and it's something I couldn't turn down because it was for obviously for a great cause, and I just felt connected to what they stood for, what I'm going through, and the message that it would show to any child living with or anybody living with diabetes that you can still do great things, and just representing them made me feel great. I was honored, and I can't wait to go again next year. I got to stay in shape, so I got to I got to up my basketball workouts from every Saturday.
Those Saturday workouts, I feel bad for those guys that are tying lacing them up next to you, just getting off their 9 to 5 for the weekend, and they got to pick up Gary Forbes in the pickup game. That's tough. Well, man, give us the plug. Where can we find in a couple of weeks? What's our official release date, and where can we find Soul Survivors?
We're looking at 3 weeks from today. The first volume will be on Amazon, for the Christmas holidays, and in January we'll be selling them on our site, www.thesoulsurvivors.com. And after I think March, we'll be releasing volume two. There's 7 volumes in the first book series, so it's a great story. It's a great series, and I was so excited to just to show the world and show so many people, the inspiration that these characters can give, powers that they possess, the daily struggles that they go through, living with these health challenges, and, just overcoming them through perseverance, and, just that sense of hope for like a better tomorrow. Because, every day is a new challenge, and, every day you have to wake up with that same fighting attitude, and really go after it. And I can't. So my favorite series is book two. So, you guys are gonna have to, read along, and get introduced to these characters. They're a great team, they're a great inspiration, and I can't wait for everyone to meet them.
Well, we are very excited for you, man, and very excited to see the Soul Survivors. So we will be sure to include the link in the show notes. But man, Gary Forbes, thanks so much for coming back on the pod, man. He's Gary Forbes on Instagram with the underscore afterwards. So give him a follow on there and support fellow type ones who are going out and doing their creative projects, man. I'm super hyped for you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.